Hey everyone, so I'm so sorry about that. Thank you for being patient, and our new link is up and running. Today I'm going to. Hey everyone, so I'm so sorry about that. Thank you for being patient, and our new link is up and running. Today I'm going to talk about Google Slides and how I use it with my students for research, and a little bit of background before I get started. I'm in a multi-age classroom, so I teach first grade, second grade, and third grade. And really, kind of how this came about was I wanted something that was kind of streamlined for my students for research, and to where I could make them cyber wise, to where they weren't just out in the flood of the internet and grabbing at straws for information, but they were able to present and use information gotten taught in class and be able to create things. So that's kind of where it stemmed from. And my students have been very successful from kindergarten through third grade with it. So I'm going to screen share with you and kind of start and show you some things that we've been working on. So first, I'm going to start out talking about researching, presenting using Google Slides. And the more work you put in the beginning, the better it is in the end. So it will take a little bit of front-loaded work on the teacher's part, but the students can be successful through this process. Oops. So our goal is to engage students and allow them to be creative, independent thinker and writers. I use Google Slides with pre-planned guidance to help younger students be successful in their early research processes. These presentations require students to express their own ideas and process the information that's presented in class. All the topics are presented before the students are given these templates, and you will be actually amazed at what they can create when you're giving them the tools. So before we get started, there are some things I wanted to talk about. You will need to have a Google Classroom account already created. So if you do not have a Google Classroom account created for your students in your class, that is the first step. You will need to be able to do that before you can even begin with this process. Each child will need a device or account access. In the computer lab, everyone has a device across the whole entire district in Garland ISD. And in the classrooms, we have devices, not one-to-one on all campuses, but we do have devices available in each classroom. You will need access to Google Slides to create the templates yourself, and you will need to add the slides to each child. This is very important, and I'll talk a little bit about it in the future, and making a copy. I'm getting click happy over here. So I want to show you some examples of student work, and I kind of want to talk you through it first, and then I'll go into the nitty gritty on how to create. So I'm going to show you, I'm going into my Google Classroom. What you'll notice in my classroom, because I do teach a multi-age classroom, I have first grade, second grade, and third grade. It's awesome with the students because I can really differentiate and create different types of templates and formats for each child, especially being able to service your GT students within the classroom. And you can see here, I have 4 first graders, I have 10 second graders, and 7 third graders. I want to go through some of them and kind of talk it through and kind of give you an idea, and then we will go and start how to create these. So the first thing that I want to talk about that I feel is really important, and in the beginning I did not do this, and we learned from all different mistakes and different things. I started out with giving my students the Google Slide template, which would be my rubric that I expected out of them, and I kind of gave them free reins of information within the internet. And I found very quickly that my expectations of what I wanted them to gain within the presentation was difficult unless I narrowed them in and I gave them safety parameters for them to be able to research safely. And so I started creating a Google document for them, a Word document, a Google Doc, with preferred resources that I create links and preferred videos that they can click on. And it really allowed them to where they did not have free range of the internet. And I knew the sites were safe. I knew the information that they were watching was on target for their goal. And so I want to show that first because that's kind of your jumping point whenever you have a topic that you have them researching. And within the classroom, all of these different presentations, the information has already been presented to them. So, for example, Dr. Seuss, that was a Dr. Seuss day. The whole entire day, we did a lot of things. And the students did this presentation throughout the day had already been exposed to information about him. So these types of things, bird research, you'll see rocks, you'll see biomes. Those are things that we've already studied in class. And then this is their creative time that they can explore and they can show what they know through creation of technology. So this is not brand new information to them. This is not the first time that they've seen these topics. That's also important to note. On here, if I click here for the research sites, just click in one of them. These are copied to each student. This is the very first step. So what they see here is they see a list of websites and a list of different types of videos that they can preview. Now, first and second grade, for sure, is only restricted to these websites and videos. As my third grade get more responsible and they're able to research accordingly, I allow them to go out of those realms to look for information. But again, I'm very cautious of what they find on the internet. Is it valuable? Is it truth? We do have a lot of lessons about that. So in the beginning, really giving them a lot of format is really helpful for them. So within this bird research, these are 5 different links on actual information that they can click on, and they can find valuable information on birds. And so this is kind of where you have to pre-plan things. What do you want? What are your expectations? And you know that the students are learning information through this website that you have pre-selected. And there are different types. In this lesson, they chose a particular bird that they were researching, and these were some that the students were really interested in. I talked to them a lot about closing out the tab when they are done. So there are 4 different websites here. Sometimes underneath you'll see that I have created different types of videos that they can preview. This particular research did not have any videos on it, but this is what I find very important to give them as a guide, and they use just these sites. So I will just show you a couple of student ones. So this was Dr. Seuss. And particular students got this Dr. Seuss presentation. So in the beginning, which you'll see when I start talking about how to create them, the first slide, what I always do is they know that once they go through the rubric style slide, they delete the information that's given and they plug in their new information. So for example, on this first slide, it would say title and it would say photograph and it would say name. So the students know that they're required to have a title, they're required to have a photograph, and they're required to have their name on that first slide. It's taken a while to upload. Again, you won't see all the notations and things on here because I have taught them to delete that information afterwards. Popped into a new student. Pardon me, the system is running a little bit slow. I'll give it a second to kind of catch up. So on this slide, you can see here there is still a little bit left over from some of my rubric-based sentences that's left here. This slide, they were expected to create 5 facts about Dr. Seuss. They also had to have their title included. This one, he was supposed to have 5 pictures, and he was supposed to have captions with each picture. And he did not have that part. On this one, this is Dr. Seuss's timeline, and you can see that he turned this in and it's not complete. When I choose to add in, depending on what my goal is for each presentation, we were setting timelines. So I wanted them to be able to fill in a timeline here. Now, again, I have a lot of guide. So I already had the timeline presented. So this was already all in here. I had created that. They had to create the title, and I added this link here because I knew the information for them for a timeline. My main goal was for them to be able to take the information and place it in chronological order. And so I didn't want them searching around looking for this information. That wasn't the goal. It was to see that they could put chronological order here and that they could paraphrase. So I create links, and they know when they hover over the link that this is where they're going to find information for this topic. So this is Dr. Seuss and his timeline. So they filtered through the information, and they were going back and they placed it in their timeline. So he is not complete here. I had birth, and then I had the death here, and they could choose what they wanted to place in between. A lot of times the students like to do book reviews. So for this particular one, I put a link in here for a book that was a read aloud, and they were doing a book review and they were writing their favorite part of their book. And so here they need headphones, and they will click on it, and then they will be able to respond. On this slide, we had been working on contractions. And of course, it was Dr. Seuss. It was Dr. Seuss Day, and we were celebrating him and making things kind of fun and engaging for them. They love getting on and seeing what new slides I've created for them to go in and to create. Here, they had to look through this Dr. Seuss poem, and they had to give the contractions and the rhyming words that they found within the poem. So this is kind of a glimpse in one of them. Now this one wasn't as intense, so that one didn't take too long. But again, the most important thing is not giving students just, especially first and second graders, just telling them go and create. I found that if I gave them a rubric on a sheet of paper and told them to go create a slide, they were far less successful. It's a lot to navigate in the beginning, and I'm scaffolding and constantly helping. And then as you slowly let go, then they start creating on their own. And that's our ultimate goal, is that they can create on their own. But beginning in the upfront, it's definitely helping them so they can feel successful. So here's bird research, which we start on topics. Here in the Montessori classroom, we stay on topics for quite a while within our culturals. So we start out with the parts of the bird, and then we go into the types of beaks. Then we go into the types of nests birds have. We go into their flight patterns. So we do a lot of research within topics, and students really like to take it all, and they like to put it together and create presentations. They do present these to the lower students. We call them lower elementary. Primary, I'm sorry. They present them to some of lower elementary, and they present them to primary. So they feel really successful within their work when they can present knowledge that they've gained. And after I create the actual slide, they go in, and I talked about this a little bit. Our main important goal is that they cannot create any type of fun font. They cannot change the color of the font until the whole entire presentation is complete. They'll spend a lot of time trying to jazz it up, and the content won't be there. So our rule is you have to create everything. You have to have your information there before you can go back and change fonts, before you can go back and add some transitions and backgrounds and all of that. So this is a student that I have. She's really into birds. She loves birds. One of her favorite birds is the common tailor bird. Now, of course, within these researches too, depending on the student, I give them a lot of leeway in the choices that they choose. So they all get to choose a type of bird. We kind of talk things over as I'm presenting and creating the slides. I ask them some things of their interest, and then I go off of that. So within this bird, she chose the common tailor bird. And of course, on the outside again, it would have said, your bird of choice that you're interested in studying, a picture of that bird, your name, and the title. And then once they create that, they take away the rubric-based expectations. Alongside here, she had erased it, but there was information here about how she needed to label the parts of a bird. This was, of course, again, just a review because they had done this already. And this is a puzzle that they see in primary, and they work on a lot in the 3, 4, and 5-year-old classroom. And so it was just kind of going back and seeing that they could label these parts. Again, I just put the image on here. I created all the text boxes. They were all empty. I did have the title, and I had expectations to the side. And I teach them in the beginning when I go through this, I teach them to erase their expectations after they have met them. sometimes they forget and we have to go back. This was the habitat. And from my understanding, from what I can remember, here they had to have 3 photographs and they needed to have captions. We've been working a lot on different text features. And so you can see she has a caption here, but she was missing her caption for each photo. So that's a lot of talking points you try to carry in. There's a lot of reading, a lot of writing within language arts that you can put in here. The bird's diet. And so this, my expectations, of course, were already written in here. You cannot see it because this is what she's turned in. They were supposed to find the bird's diet, and they had to have photographs, and they also had to have captions. And I can kind of see where they're at within their writing when they're just writing, one word compared to writing sentences, maybe going more into detail about these seeds, what kind of tree did they come from. You'll see the levels of students based on how detailed that they get. The expectation on this slide was convince whether your bird would make a good pet or not and give reasons why. And so you can see here that that's what she had done. I do want to go and talk about this. We use this quite a bit. It's not here anymore from what I can tell. So on a lot of slides that I have vocabulary on it, is my bird endangered? So this word endangered, when I go and show you kind of how I create them, I highlight across the actual word and I link in the definition from the dictionary. And I also sometimes link in a video that if I find an appropriate fun video on YouTube to where if they stumble across any words that they might not know, they can click on the link and it gives them more information. That has been very helpful too. I'll go through a lot of slides and think about some vocabulary that they might stumble on. And I always link in the dictionary for them so that they can go and they can listen to it. They don't have to be able to read. They can click to listen to the definition of the word, and that helps them. So really, the main thing here is being able to create these slides with as much guidance as you can place in here for them to be successful. And as you see that they don't need it, then you can back off from it. And then here, the students love putting in their fun facts. So this is a student, another different student with a different research. Here's another guide. I'll click on. And the students get used to knowing that in their classroom, they have a guide first. We talk about these guides are the websites that they can click on and the resources that they can use, and they need to stay within the guide because that's information that I find will be helpful for them and that it's accurate information. So this was on rocks. The students were really into rocks, and some students do these presentations, some do not. It's based on their interest. If they're interested in diving in deeper, it's not something that all students have to do. They all know that through different science and language and topics we study, they typically, most of them ask me, can you create a Google slide? And most of them want to, but this is not something that they have to do. This is an extension for them, and they love to do them. So here are some of the resources and the websites that they could use for this rock presentation. And then these were videos that I linked in that I found that were helpful for them, and they were not too long so that they weren't sitting and, just watching videos, but they like to see it in different forms of media. So I'll show you. See if we can find, and I can go in a second grade class too. I haven't shown his yet. I do buddy up in the beginning, my first graders with my third graders. They just recently, after the holidays, have been working independently on this. In the beginning, they have a buddy because they're getting used to, the typing and that kind of thing. And the expectations are varied, and there's more picture-based things. I've taught them how to upload pictures. There's a lot of components to it, but with the first graders, it's adding a lot of connecting lines. It's adding a lot of different photographs, and working up to second and third grade, they're doing a little bit more of the heavy work there. This was after we did a rock investigation. This obviously here again was photographs. So these were some These were the questions that I pre-selected that I wanted them. So they had to have sentences and pictures, examples for each. Where they found rocks, so they had to give me sentences based on what they already knew, their previous background knowledge of rocks. We had been studying rocks for about 2 weeks. They had a bunch of books. We collect books from the library so they can use, we have different lessons that they can go back and look at. So they just use all the resources that they have been using for the last 2 weeks and compile their information. It's a very good tool to see if they understood the content or if you need to go back and work things through and kind of do some reteaching. This was actually done by a second and third grader, and they teamed up here. Where do we find rocks? What are they used for? And it's really interesting to find, they are used for technology with minerals inside everything, which they find different things and explain to you why there's different rocks and minerals, why they believe they're within the phone, and they'll tell you about glass and different things. Rocks inside your house, countertops, bricks, bathtubs. And so I really dive in and ask them a lot of questions when they present them. And so they know that I'm looking for information other than just putting it on a presentation. When they present, we do a lot of dialogue back and forth. Rocks outside of the house. And again, this is information, really working on complete sentences, punctuation. It's so much more than just getting the information on there. It's going back at their grammar. It's going back at being able to comprehend lots of different aspects. These were the different types of rocks that we were studying. They had a template that told them how many photographs they needed. They needed a title, and they needed information about those particular rocks. And again, it's best to put your expectations within the slide instead of on a sheet of paper because the transfer from paper to slide is difficult for students. It's like the transfer from a board to the paper is difficult. So when something's right in front of you and you're writing over, then it's a lot easier for the students and they're not wasting as much time worrying about transfer as they are being able to work on the topic. So this is metamorphic. And it's funny to find, some students are really into a certain type of rock, and you'll find more information about it, and you'll find their interests. A lot of times at the end, this is a little boy, I guess 3 people. At the end of their presentation, I tell them that they can put in a photograph of themselves, and they can kind of do like their little author speaks, and they'll tell us what they loved about that section. So in this particular one, the last slide, the expectation was for them to take a photograph together. And I'll just kind of show you one more, and then I'm going to go back and so this one was on a student's biome. So on this particular research, this child, they chose the biome that they were interested in. They had done a lot of different things within class. They got to choose a biome of interest, and they went through and created slides with the information that was already taking a little bit of a while. This was a first grader and a second grader here. You can see that this part right here, she should have taken out. And there was some more verbiage on here for her as far as expectations, but I do need to go back and reinforce that with them. We were talking a lot about the continents and being able to locate things on a map. And here again, there was a lot of captions that they have missed within here. Now I'm going to show you. And second and third, they also do them. Sometimes I change up kind of the way that the presentation and the slides are created. Let's see. If I can find. Oh, I did this, but it was on my friend's account. There, she was working with her friend, which is funny. see. So on this particular slide expectation in the beginning here, these students, the second graders, they absolutely love putting their pictures on the front. And so here they took a photo of themselves. They had the tundra that they chose as their biome. And the expectation was 3 complete sentences for them. The location, and they were supposed to be using, the expectation here was for them to use labels. This group of students, they really, there's a couple of mine that really like to find different videos and plug them in for their presentation because they prefer asking questions during a presentation. So this group of students, these two, they're my powerhouse powerhouse slide friends, and they absolutely love creating slides. So I've given them a little bit more leeway. So they preview different videos, and I look at them also to make sure that they are appropriate. And they create questions based on the video to ask during their presentations, and they write those questions down on a sheet of paper. So when we have parameters that the video can't be a certain amount of minutes, and they have to have certain questioning if they're going to put a video on. And so they love getting up in front of the class and they ask questions and they link their videos, and they're really good at that. So again, being able to differentiate with the students and see the areas that they are strong in and going off of that. So there, when I create these student slides, I do give them the leeway to create and to add videos as long as they have questioning and they have to prove that to me. They had a little bit more that they had to create on their slides based on their needs. They had to create definitions. So this was their reflection about the slides. They talked about how they felt about it, if the information was hard for them, easy for them, what they would like to do in the future. And we do a lot of reflecting. And so you can see there. And they have their photographs. And they really take pride in this. It's not just about the slide, it's about information that's created. And I help them and give them a template from the beginning. And so that's really what is important through this process. So I'm going to show you kind of how I do that quickly because I know. So creating a template, some tips that I could say is a pre-plan. You have to pre-plan the questioning. Thinking about, I was already kind of planning, we're moving into volcanoes. So I've already been planning my expectations, looking through the TEKS and finding out exactly what your students, the levels that they need to be at, the questioning they need to have, and pre-planning, pre-planning, pre-planning. I also was looking up Earth Day is coming up in the next couple of weeks. So my students really love Earth Day and all the activities you can do, and creating a slide for them and their individual needs that they can really dive in, creating links for them, information, giving them slides to where they can produce projects that they could work on. It's endless on the things that you could have them doing. So really it's sitting down and opening the slides and thinking and planning out, what exactly do I want them to do? What do I need to link on here for them? What do I need to create for them to be successful instead of giving them just a blank slide? Walking through the students the whole process. So it probably took me, I would say, a couple of months. I would put one on the screen that I've already created as a whole entire class. We would add information. The next time I would have a couple of students together with a device and I would slowly work up. My first graders, they worked with the second and third graders. It did not take them actually that long, depending on, your students and what they are capable of. And once they kind of get in and get started, they really like to add things. Adding a sources page for research. That was the important thing that I found that I didn't do in the beginning, and I will do until I find that they're responsible enough to go out and do that on their own. It really cuts down on the time of them looking for information again that's not factual, or looking for information that's um, not tied to their objective within that slide. And going back to, their expectations, and making sure that each slide has their goal written on it. And we limit any font or color changes or any transitions until the end of their presentation. So those have been kind of some tips that have helped me. So I want to show you very quickly, because I know that your time is valuable and we have gone over time. And I have some templates. I guess I could. This one isn't a complete created one, but I'll kind of just go off of here and give examples. So in the very beginning, when you create the first slide, the title of what you want there, their picture, their name. When you go into slides, this is very basic. So this would have been my first grade, second grade in the beginning. Here, location on what continents is your biome located. You need to have some pictures, you have words. I specify in the very beginning how many pictures, how many words, and I go over this with them in very, very much detail, what my expectations are. Again, when I talk about highlighting words, let's say they forgot what the word biome means. And so I'll highlight, and I'll add a link here to the dictionary, and they can click on it and they can hover over it, and it will go over and it will read the words to them. It will tell them the definition. So pretty much what I do, for the sake of time, I'll kind of run through this. I open up a blank slide and I type in my expectations on every single slide. If I'm going to create a graphic organizer, I go through and I create the whole organizer. If I'm going to add photographs of something, if I'm going to have them label or diagram anything, I have it all in here. And then I'm going to send it to my students, and each child has to get a copy. And that's a really important part, because if they do not each have a copy, then they will start manipulating each other's information, and then it will be a huge problem. So when you are going to make them a copy in their Google Classroom, I will show you what that looks like very quickly. So if I'm just going to title the slide, and of course here you probably know you can quickly add everyone else. But again, my students, of course, they're on different levels and the expectations are different. Sometimes your students, you might have a group, you can group them based on their needs. So they might not all have the same slide. Differentiation, they have different slides, different expectations. When you add a link or when you add a document in here, I'm sorry, fumbling for my words. Let's just say we're going to add the Dr. Seuss. Okay, so when you click here, you have to make a copy for each child. So you will click make one for each student, and then you will assign. If you do not click this, then as they start manipulating, they're changing each other's information. They will get very frustrated. So this is really, really important, to make a copy for each student. And after you create the actual slide with the rubric template on each page, then you will add it here. And when they open it, they will know what's expected on each page for them. And then they will back out their expectations. In the beginning, I really lay out word for word what I expect, and give them a lot of guide. And then I start to kind of take it away, and then I see how awesome it is that they can create on their own with little guidance as you push forward. So that is everything that I wanted to share today with you. If you have any questions, Sorry, I was going to change it around. So that is everything that I have today to present for you. If you have any questions, I could go on and show you, and I could step by step walk you through how to create a slide. But again, your needs are going to be different than my needs are. And I use it mainly for cultural, which we consider our histories and our sciences and our geographies. And so we use it for that a lot in mainstream all of our language within cultural. We kind of embed them together. And so this is our presentation. The students get to present these. And this is the way that I found most effective for them to be successful in a younger age and feel wonderful doing slides. They even send them to their parents, and they're really excited about it. So it's awesome. The kids have grown a ton being able to do this. And so I hope you enjoyed seeing some of their work. Again, these are little guys and girls. They are first, second, and third graders, and they are doing some awesome things. So just give it time and give them lots of guidance in the beginning and lots of expectation, and they will do awesome. So I hope you enjoyed.